Welcome, everyone. Doc T here with another episode of the Horses Advocate podcast. So glad you joined me. Let's just get right to it. I am going to go back to something I've been discussing several times in the past several months about the crisis in the equine veterinarian field. I'm starting to see more and more things coming out regarding this subject, and I wanted to bring you some updates to it. Not that there's really anything earth-shattering here, but all of you who own horses, I've been trying to tell you that possibly in the near future, we are going to have an incredible shortage of equine veterinarians. And this isn't meant to scare anybody. It's basically here to help you understand what the problem is and what we might be able to do about it. So the first thing I noticed was, let's share the screen with my browser. And I wanted to show you that the AVMA, which is the American Veterinary Medical Association, has this straight talk about veterinary workforce issues, dispelling misinformation and disinformation in the post-COVID era. And this is from July 14th of 2023, when the AVMA president, Dr. Lori Teller, delivered a presentation and participated in a panel on July 13th on the topics of veterinary workforce, proposed mid-level positions, and importance of the in-person veterinary client-patient relationship. This is pretty interesting, and I wanted to start here because this involves all veterinarians worldwide. Of note, I have Google let me know anytime the words equine dentistry comes up together anywhere in the world of the web. And it came up with an equine veterinarian in Australia who was interviewed. He happens to be an equine dentist who was asked about this shortage that's coming up. And in Australia, they talked about it. And what I found interesting was not only is there a shortage, but they also talked about the unfairness of people who come from outside Australia with money in their pockets to come in there and become veterinarians versus the native Australians who might have a tough time having the money, who might be qualified to become veterinarians, but can't make it into vet school because it's cost prohibitive. And that brings up a really interesting point, because I know several Americans who, for the past 3 or 4 decades, have left America to go to universities abroad, whether it's in United Kingdom or Italy or in the islands of the Caribbean. They are all going out there trying to get their veterinary degrees to come back because either they don't meet the criteria or they don't have the money to attend universities here in North America. So we've known this for a while, and there's an inherent prejudice to getting good qualified people. The horsemen that you and I both know that are out there that are just incredible with horses and have a great understanding and just have a knack with them, who will never become a veterinarian for basically one reason. They either can't afford it because they don't have the money or the credit to get the loans to get it, or two, they're so busy working just to make ends meet where they are now that they would never be able to exist for 4 to 8 years of education that's needed. So already we have a biased slant. And you guys who might have read the autobiography I wrote in the past couple of months, I read it on the podcast. If you haven't, you should look into it and start with chapter 1. But I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together when I went to vet school. I didn't know how I was going to make it. One of my chief complaints was I'm not smart enough and I don't have the money. And everyone says, don't worry about it, you'll make it through. And my wife and I did. We did whatever it took to get through. And there are plenty of grants and subsidies. It's interesting that the write-off of these loans was, student loans was not allowed by the Supreme Court. And now the government is working around that and trying to make it so these debts are paid by the government, which is creating quite a divide, political divide in this country. And is it fair for all of us who paid our way to have the younger people come in and not pay their way. It's just, anyway, I digress there. Don't worry about it. The point is, a lot of people cannot afford to go to vet school. And when they do, they come out with such a high debt load that it's almost impossible. And I've explained before in my podcasts and in my blogs that you can learn how to drive an 18-wheeler, a big over-the-road truck, and make a great living within a short period of time and provide for your family and still have what's called this work-life balance in balancing whatever you do. Like you could be on the road for 10 days and you'll have, 2 weeks off, that type thing, or you're home every night, or whatever the truck driving industry needs from you. There's enough truck drivers to make that happen. Well, there's enough truck drivers because becoming a truck driver, you don't need a lot of money. But to become a veterinarian, you need a lot of money, and you need at least 6 to 8 years of time to go through the undergraduate and the graduate programs, and more time if you want to become an intern or a resident. And that is the biggest issue that's going on in equine medicine. So this AVMA article talks about estimating future workforce needs, and it was fascinating because apparently, I'll just read here, some circulating estimates for workforce need some circulating estimates for workforce needs substantially overestimate demand and underestimate supply. Well, I think they're talking about small animals, because in the horse world, the demand is still there, and finding a veterinarian is very hard for people, especially those of you who live in the rural areas. But she goes on and says that AVMA data do not support the projected companion animal veterinarian shortage that has been reported. Notice it says companion animal. Now, frankly, that means dogs and cats. They're not talking about horses. It says between 2022 and 2030, the number of veterinarians providing services for companion animals will grow by more than 20%, from about 80,000 to more than 98,000. The anticipated 20% increase in companion animal practitioners reflects historical increases in class size, as well as the 3 new veterinary schools graduating their first classes in 2023, 24, and 25. This should help address the capacity crunch being felt across the platform, the profession. What that 20% projected increase doesn't include, however, are seats being added to existing programs that are substantially beyond historical increases. And looking even further ahead, there are 10 new veterinary schools that are in various stages of development. Whoa, what, 10 new veterinary schools? And she didn't say whether that was in the United States or North America or worldwide. But I told you several podcasts ago that at Louisiana Vet School, LSU, they were increasing the total number of students to almost doubling between now and 2030. And I'm saying, gosh, where are all these guys going? Are they all going to go into small animals? Well, let's just look at the math for just a second. If they all go into small animals, then every veterinary practice is going to have a dozen veterinarians to cover the workload. So everyone's going to just be an employee. Whereas if only 1.4% of all these graduates even think about becoming a horse vet, that's 14 out of every 1,000, which is very low. It barely covers the loss of veterinarians due to just quitting or retiring or dying. So the loss gain ratio just is still negative. But this finally brings to me a really important point. And this is where I want to just stop for a second. If you're bored out of your mind listening to me talk about this one more time, let me take a different tact. In my hometown here, there is a major construction project that is tying up traffic every morning during the commute every afternoon just trying to get home. It's just a quagmire. There are cars as far as you can see. And then about 7 p.m., all the police cars come out and they divert traffic down detours or one-lane roads that have two-lane traffic on them being passed with signs for stop or slow. And it's quite a mess. And it's been going on for well over a year as they've built a second bridge over the Florida Turnpike. And they're trying to bring the regular two-lane road into a four-lane thoroughfare. We know that the end result is going to be wonderful, but the process during it is time-consuming, tedious, and frankly, frustrating. But what bothered me yesterday and today being a Sunday, I know you guys are listening to this on Wednesday, but I passed over the construction area both days, and there's not one machine working. There's not one vehicle with a flashing yellow light. There was nothing, nobody. It was a ghost town. And this is just a regular weekend. It's not a holiday weekend, but nobody's working. And they won't work until Sunday night. They quit Friday afternoon, and that's it. Nothing Friday night or all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Now, if you take all those weekends through the year and you just take 50 out of the 52 weekends, and that's times 2 because there's 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, that's 100 extra days. That's almost a third of a year more work that could be done to get this project completed and bring peace to the area. And the only reason they don't have all these people working is simply this. It's a job. It is not a passion. It is not a team effort of people saying, man, let's get in here and get this job done. Why should they? They're being paid a set amount of dollars for the time they put in there. If they work twice as fast, they may get twice the money, but then they aren't able to go out and enjoy their lives. So these construction workers have a work-life balance built in, and they have a work core that is set. So the project's going to get done when it's going to get done. That's a job, folks. That is the definition of a job. A job is you go to McDonald's or any fast food restaurant you want, you punch in your time clock, and then you work and you try to create the hamburgers and the French fries and the cold drinks and package them up and get them out the door. But you don't really care if you get, 100 customers per hour versus 90 versus 80 customers an hour, because you just don't care, because you're going to get paid the same amount of money for that time. It is a job. And yes, you learn some good skills, but if you don't have good leadership, or if your expenses are too high and you force that leadership on the employees say, why should I work harder for you? The contract says the road has to be built by such and such a date, but if the workers aren't happy, they're just going to do their pace. And there's really no incentive other than money to drive them through it. And we don't have that incentive in veterinary medicine. In fact, veterinary medicine isn't a job. And you guys are listening to this. If you're a veterinarian or work at a school, or you're having trouble getting your head around the idea of what is veterinary medicine, it is not a job, and you're treating it as such. It is a passion. It's powered by people who devote their lives to fixing problems in horses, to finding solutions for people who bring their animal to us to fix, to save. And we do the best that we can. But what are you going to do, whether it's a small animal clinic where you have case upon case upon case of emergencies that walk through your door, and you're planning to go out and have an anniversary dinner with your significant other? You call that person up and say, sorry, honey, I'm not coming. I've got patients out the door. And if that spouse is like my wife, they're going to say, I know this is your calling, Geoff. Go do those things. I wrote a whole blog about the 3 emergencies I had on Christmas Day. how I was so lucky because they allowed me time in between to interact with my family, to have the special Christmas breakfast, and to have time to watch my, you know, child open up his presents and the delight. But I couldn't do it on a regular, I couldn't do it if the times were different. And I would just say, sorry, you're going to have to open up the packages later, or we're going to have dinner postponed. And veterinarians know this is the way it is. And in large animal, especially horses, the demands come in at all hours on any day. And if the veterinarian says, I'm sorry, but I'm closed today because I need a work-life balance with my family, that's not going to fly with a person. And just the past week, I had somebody said, I have called every vet in the area. They will not come out and help me look at this swollen sheath. I need help. Now, what are you supposed to do? I can't diagnose things over the phone, and I'm not often in the area. I could be, several states away. So what are the local vets doing? They have created a mess where these veterinary schools are graduating employees or maybe sole proprietors, but they're not finding people with passion for what we want to do that are willing to go out there anytime, day or night, risk their lives traveling in bad weather or bad drivers on the interstate and fight their way, literally fight their way. I mean, people ask me all the time, Doc, why are you driving a Tesla? And frankly, I got the Tesla because I needed some help in driving. I don't want to hire a driver. I've been an over-the-road truck driver, and I know what it's like to have a bad person behind the wheel. It's scary. I can't sleep. I can't get good work done. Luckily, I've had some really good people be drivers for me, but that's more expensive than just letting the car do most of the driving. So that's what I do. And that's my choice, because I want the safest vehicle on the planet, which happens to be a Tesla, that drives itself. Yes, it needs to be told every 20 seconds that I'm there. But that's the reason I do it, because I want to arrive fresh. I want to enjoy the process of getting to this farm, which I do. And when I get there, I get the work done, and then I go to the next farm and the next farm. And when I was doing emergency work 24/7, I always drove the best vehicle I could possibly find, as stocked as good as I could. And I knew how to go from point A to point B in the most efficient way. But when somebody's more worried about their dinner plans that night or seeing their child grow, they're not looking at veterinary medicine the same way I did, and so many other veterinarians did. And so what I'm trying to say is, veterinary medicine isn't a job. If you want a job where you have this good work-life balance, where you don't work on weekends, or you have the afternoons off to be with your child when they come home from school, then get yourself a job that allows for that. But to apply those standards to a profession where animals don't have a clock, they don't say, hey, I'm not going to get sick because it's nighttime. I'll only get sick between Monday and Friday between 9 and 4. It's just not going to happen. Same with human medical doctors. But the difference is, in human medical doctors and in small animal companion practices, they are punching out more and more of cookie cutter veterinarians who are basically great technicians with that extra degree behind them that allows them to do veterinary or medical procedures. And they're equipped. They now have, all the fancy technology, from fancy blood work, where we can now look for Cushing's disease or insulin resistance. We can do titers. We can, patch things up and start treating things because we have all this equipment and drugs. But the person who's behind it has failed to realize that a lot of people can't afford this stuff. A lot of people can't. No, I can't do 100 x-rays on this pre-purchase. I'll give you 4, 2 of each hock and 2 of the front feet. So that's 8 radiographs. That's what I can afford. And can we offer them a standard of care with only those 4 views? Are we going to miss a stifle OCD lesion? What about, me, I'm so big on nutrition. What about offering nutritional consultations? Well, we've relinquished that to nutritionists that are owned by grain companies. Come on. Are you kidding? And then we have integrative medicine where we have chiropractic and acupuncture, laser therapy, pulse electromagnetic field therapy. All of these I'm finding now are very valid remedies. But the handful of veterinarians who are out there applying it are overworked too, because they want to go out there and they want to prescribe the certain herbs that are needed to supplement your horse and bring them through deficiencies that they find through their examinations. But we relinquish that to non-veterinarians. So now we're filling the gap with non-veterinarians, which means the veterinarian who's invested the 8 years and all the money to get to where they need to go, to get that DVM degree or VMD or whatever degree is granted to them to practice veterinary medicine. They're now in a field of people who have not invested that time. I just got a brochure from the Chi Institute, Veterinary Medical Manipulation Practitioner Certification Course. And they're located here in Reddick, Florida, near Ocala. And I think it's great. I think they have a good program, all taught by DVMs, and you have to be DVM or DVM student to come out here and do this. But there are other companies, other places that non-veterinarians can go out and learn this stuff and then apply it to the horse, because most state veterinary practice acts don't single it out like, dentistry. And they say, oh, it's chiropractic. Well, anybody can do that. Or laser therapy, or pulse PEMF, pulse electromagnetic therapy. You don't have to be a veterinarian, because these are not veterinary prescribed treatments. They're just medical devices, which means anybody can use them. So all of a sudden, the horse owner now looks and says, okay, I've got a farrier over here. Of course, I've got my veterinarian. I've got a farrier. I've got an equine dentist coming. I also have a chiropractor. I have this integrative, I shouldn't say integrative vet, but I've got a body worker. And I'm not knocking it, but psychics. So now they've hired 6, 8, 10 different people to fix their horse. And the veterinarian can't cover it all, because they have to go out and keep sewing up your horse or fixing the colic. And I think I told you the other day about the colic, where the guy basically refused to even do a rectal exam because he basically didn't have time. He just says, oh, no, just here's some drugs. Okay, I'll see you later. Call me if he doesn't get any better, which is not a thorough colic exam. It's just getting worse and worse. And so some people are offering this idea of a mid-level position, which is kind of like the physician's assistant. So yes, they're specially trained, they're beyond technicians, but they're not medical doctors. And some people are saying they should do this. And of course, we have telemedicine, which is, you call up your vet and you say, Doc, my horse is rolling on the ground. And he says, what's the temperature? What's the pulse? What's the respirations? Here, go ahead and give this. And the horse gets better or it doesn't. That's telemedicine. It's been going on for decades, long before computers. But sometimes we have to triage and say, look, I can't come out there. Here, do some Banamine and let me know how it goes. Not the best. But when your farm is 100 miles away, as my practice was up in Ithaca, New York, where one side of it was 50 miles one direction, the other side of the radius was 50 miles in 180-degree different direction. And it would take sometimes 2 hours to drop everything up in Syracuse and run down to Elmira to take care of things. It's just crazy. So, yeah, we do a lot of telemedicine. But is it legal? No, you're supposed to have a valid client-patient relationship, which in that practice, I knew the person, I knew the horse, and I said, okay, try this. So it was pretty much a valid client-patient relationship. But I have people contacting me all the time, as you've heard on this podcast. Look, I'm not your veterinarian. Only he or she can prescribe and treat. I can't do it. I can't answer the phone for, anybody who calls from anywhere and says, hey, this is what I think is going on. What do you think? I said, well, I can't help you. Anyway, the bottom line from this AVMA deal was there are a ton of veterinarians coming out, and we're going to have more. And so the place is going to be swarming veterinarians, and they're all going to be doing small animals because, that's where the money is. Okay, I wanted to go over to the American Association of Equine Practitioners that has a conference coming up. And what's the name of this conference? Okay, let's see if I can find it. No. Catch the Wave, an opportunity in equine practice. So that's what they're talking about, what's going on. It's interesting. They keeping their all their AAP conferences out of the West Coast, which is interesting. And the reason for that is it's dirt cheap. Nobody can afford the prices on the East Coast, so it's just not done. So anyway, so here's the sessions that they've got. And on Thursday, the 30th is the first day, and they have an opening session and a keynote presentation, and that's all fine. Then they have the Kester News Hour, which is kind of good. They go through all the readings and stuff. But then they have their keynote speaker, and their keynote speakers their talk is called Understanding DEI for the Equine Veterinary Profession. Now, if you don't know what DEI is, it's a hot topic right now. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that is on everybody's mind in human resources. So, I don't know. I just look, do you own horses or not? Okay, if you don't own horses, I really don't have that much time for you. I love people who have horses and we talk. I could care less about where your origin is from, who you want to vote for. It just makes zero sense to me. We keep politics and religion out of the barn unless somebody brings it up and they really want to talk about it. Then I'll talk about it from my heart. But I'm not worried about losing the client because the client wants to talk about it. But I usually stay away from all that. So they want to talk about diversity and equity and inclusion. And I'm like, what does that have to do with the AAP conference? This isn't a job. This is all about a passion. Everybody who's in that conference should be equine veterinarians who are passionate about helping horses and helping people with their horses to provide the best life they can. And they're willing to do more than most. Think of the Secret Service here in America. These men and women say, look, I'm going to protect the president. I don't agree with the president, or the president's my best friend. It doesn't matter to them. If a threat comes to our president, he or she will throw their body in front of the threat and take the bullet for the president. Every Secret Service agent knows that if they're on the presidential detail, that's the cost of doing business. And yet veterinarians come out. We know the cost of doing business is driving up and down the road. It's seeing the horse at odd hours. It's going out there knowing that the horse is going to be fine, but the owner's having a mental breakdown over this. And we're there to help the owner through their horse to make them feel comfortable and relaxed. That's our job. And we do it 24/7. And we subordinate ourselves to our need for sleep or watching the children grow or nurturing their relationship with a spouse that we have. It's just the way it is. And yet I am told I'm old-fashioned, that I don't understand, and I'm going to die early. No, I'm not going to die early. So far, there's no indication that I'm going to die early. Besides, what is early? Is it 70? Is it 80? Is it 90? I'll never forget. I've got an 83-year-old friend right now who's practicing veterinary medicine at a pretty good clip. Now, he's just starting to cut back. That's fine. And he's been through several wives and has more children than most people can even count. That's his choice. But he's always been, above everything, a horse vet. Now, we've got another vet who passed away a couple of years ago, who's 92, and he was still practicing. And people respected him because he was sharper than a tack. He was amazing. Everybody knows this man. And you'll see people like this everywhere, but they worked all the time. Did they have a great life at home? I don't know. I really don't know. Were they married a long time? Maybe, maybe not. Did their children love them? Actually, they did, because they looked at the person and saw a person living for a purpose, not a paycheck. And I'm afraid that most veterinarians are going out there worried about the paycheck because they have a huge bill to pay for their veterinary education. And if they don't, because they were lucky enough to have it all subsidized by a parent or something, a benefactor, do they really have skin in the game? Or are they just coasting? I don't know. There's a lot of questions, and each one's an individual topic. But, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not on any mind of any good horse vet. I promise you, just isn't there. And yet it's the keynote speaker here. Why? Because all these new kids who are coming out being veterinarians, it's being drilled into them. Oh, you have to have diversity, equity. Oh, don't look at the skin color. Oh, don't look at the religion. Oh, don't look at the politics. But a good horse vet wasn't looking in the first place. They don't care. I promise you, a good horse vet doesn't care. All they care about is attending to your horse and making sure the horse is living a great life and making sure that your life is happy for that. So let me move on to Friday, December 1st. And they have sports medicine, rehab, in-depth mitigating pregnancy loss, back to basics radiology and practice. This is really great. Oh, what? 8 o'clock? What do we have? Business and practice life, managing expenses, compensation, and support staff. So understanding business expenses. Okay, that's great. Veterinary compensation. How many pennies are spent on me? I mean, everybody has to be looking at that. If they don't, they're asking themselves, okay, you know, can I stay in business? And that's huge. And then the use of support staff to maximize veterinary effectiveness. Well, there are some people who say you need a good vet assistant. Oh, there's no doubt. A great veterinary assistant can make things so much easier for veterinarians. I've got everything for it. So let's say you pay this vet support staff $50,000. Well, wait, whoa, what's the starting price of a veterinarian in equine practice? Well, somewhere between $57,000 and $72,000. Oh, well, they're getting paid almost as much as the veterinarian they're working for. What's going on here? And now, here, let's look at another piece of math. Let's say the veterinarian says, okay, I don't want to hire a vet tech. I'll get a, what do you call those virtual assistants to do the scheduling. And I'll get 2 vehicles, 2 x-ray units. I have 2 veterinarians. No, that's too expensive. Okay, what I'll do is I'll do 1 truck, 1 x-ray, 1 ultrasound, and I'll get 2 veterinarians. One veterinarian works Monday through Thursday. The other one is Friday through Sunday. And they agree to it. And so here you are, you're waiting for the vet to show up, and you don't know if you're going to get Dr. A or Dr. B. And maybe you like Dr. A and hate Dr. B. I don't know. So let's say Dr. B doesn't pull in the income. Nobody calls Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because they know they're going to get Dr. B. So they're waiting for Monday. So Monday, Dr. A gets slammed and she can't even do everything. And she gets overworked. And yet Dr. B, who didn't get any calls, is getting the same amount of money. So there's so many problems. I mean, just so many problems. I'll tell you, if I could afford it, I would get 3 or 4 vets, and they're constantly overlapping, and people have a choice of who they get, and they have like 2 trucks going out there, and everything would be happy. Oh, and I raise the salary, so these 4 vets would get let's say $110,000 a piece starting salary. So we're talking about $440,000 just for starting salary. Well, of course, we have insurance to carry on them. We have Social Security tax that the employer has to pay, not just the employee. You've got the vehicles, that you not only have to purchase, but you have to maintain and operate. Then you have to have 2 pieces of equipment so they can cover the practice in a timely fashion. So instead of having 20 calls in a day, which is impossible, they might have 7 calls in a day, which is a doable job. And they be able to make some money and get everything done. Oh, but to do that, we're going to have to double, even triple the prices to our clients so we can afford that. And what is the client going to say? What do you mean a radiograph? Just one radiograph for $250? And you want to do a whole study? It's going to cost me $1,000? No freaking way. The horse costs $3,000. So you're kind of stuck. So this is a never-ending problem of horse owners, of horse owners and of horse vet practice owners. So it's going to be very, very, very difficult. Here in the afternoon, I Am Change, transforming your equine practice with innovative solutions. Where are we headed? This session will discuss the issues of compensation and practice culture and provide an overview of what each subcommittee is doing. Compensation, review of the findings and solutions for the subcommittees focused on. Practice culture, review of the framework that the subcommittee is developing. Rewards of practice, a closer look at compensation and recognition. Tangible solutions related to compensation, closing the gender gap. That's because in small animal, no matter what your gender is, you get paid $103,000, but men in equine get about $72,000 and women get about $57,000, I think, something like that. And then they talk about the intangibles, recognition, honest conversations, getting comfortable with numbers and each other. So it's just like, it's all about, oh, here we go. Table topics, emotional well-being and compassion fatigue. Are you kidding? Compassion fatigue. You know what compassion fatigue is you're just tired of taking care of all these people who have problems with their horses. And some of them you actually have to say, nope, this horse has to be euthanized. And people don't want to do that because now they're responsible for making the decision to put this horse to sleep rather than the owner. So it's really, really tough. Let's see, Saturday, they talk about the intersection of ethics and equine practice and the sustainability of the profession. So they talk about emergency coverage, practice culture, internships, and again, compensation. It's all about compensation. And the problem is, if you want to compensate these veterinarians, you better be working in a very, very horse-dense area, and you have to be hustling to make all the dollars spread out. So you might go to a racetrack, let's say, and ask a racetrack vet, how much money are you earning? And they'll have a gross in the millions. But then you ask them, what's your accounts receivable? And that's also in the millions. And what are they driving? They're driving their beat up car back and forth, or they might be driving the Rolls Royce. It might be anything in between. They have all the bells and whistles because they can charge a lot of money because it's just passed on to wealthy people on racehorses. That is an outlier. Let's talk about the guy in rural America who's out there trying to help the person who's got 2 donkeys and a mini, or who has, one show horse and no backup, and they want to enjoy using their horse for a long period of time without lameness or any other problems. And now the horse calls in and they think they've got a bowed tendon or it's got laminitis. And what are you going to do for that person? You're going to say, well, this is what we're going to do. And it's going to cost you about $3,500 to do all this therapy. And the person is looking at their, $10,000 horse and their show schedule, and they bite the bullet and they spend $3,500 off a credit card to help get their horse fixed. And the outcome may not be that good. It may not be perfect. So they end up with an animal that they spent $3,500 on with loss of use, or at least the level they were using. They might have a pleasure horse, a pasture horse, but what are they going to do? And they don't have, and now they have to work harder to pay off their credit card bill. So yeah, I'm not really. let's go over to the Florida Association of Equine Practitioners. And they have a conference coming up Thursday, October 19th, which is, okay. It's basically about laws and dispensing illicit drugs, which we in Florida have to take every year, every other year. But they have emergency service, thinking outside the box. The burden of emergency service is one of the main factors in the decreased number of veterinarians interested in equine practice. Because horses traditionally have received emergency services on the farm from their local veterinarian, changes are necessary to ensure that care is available when needed. This presentation will outline new ideas for providing equine emergency care that could reduce the burden on individual equine practitioners. So we have a veterinarian in our town that does nothing but emergencies, will not do anything like lameness exam, pre-purchase, or anything like that. It's only, hey, I'm on call 24/7. I'll run all over the countryside and take care of emergencies for you. But after that, the horse goes back to your regular vet. And that's one interesting way of doing it. And it can be stressful because it's 24/7, 365, unless this person wants to get a second vet and share the load. Again, it goes back to, gosh, Dr. B's coming, but I like Dr. A. I love Dr. A. Dr. B is new out of school and I don't trust her. Could be a him, but it's most likely a her. Again, that's not gender bias. It's just the way it is. Then on Friday, the morning session is split. On one side, you have understanding injury pathogenesis and what we know to influence injury prevention. That's really great. But the other half of the convention is the reality of equine practice. Trends in equine practice are constantly undergoing change. We'll outline the relationship between current economic and industry conditions and their effect on practice performance, delve into the opportunities and challenges in the equine veterinary industry, offer insights into innovative thinking about the future equine practice. Then it goes into creating a healthy practice culture. With the present difficulty with retaining staff and associates in many practices, culture has become more important than ever. Communication, teamwork, collaboration, security, connection, balance of professional and personal life, and opportunities for growth are all important in creating a healthy practice where people like work. Okay. And then it says how to be an effective mentor. Let me go back to, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just talk to you guys. I know that when you listen to a podcast, you don't mind being have the attention brought to a problem. And I get that, no big deal. But you also expect somebody to come up with a solution. And I have a solution. I've already mentioned it. We have to stop this jabber about changing everything. And we need to start focusing on who is an equine veterinarian. I mean, what is it? What makes up an equine veterinarian? And it's got to be a person who absolutely loves horses, is not afraid of them, who wants to work with them 24/7, is only in heaven if they're in a horse stall, is despondent on the weekend when the phone hasn't rung and everybody wants to go to the family picnic and you rather be in a horse stall. That's the person who's going to be the best equine veterinarian. But instead, the whole generation is cultured toward life is short. Let's live it 100% with everything out there. It's all about family. Am I wrong to say that that's fine for some people, but it doesn't work for any medical field? If we had hundreds or thousands of extra equine vets out there, all getting paid a lot of money, then we'd be tripping over each other, getting out the door, trying to take care of the horse. But if something came up, I've got my son's first baseball game and I want to see it. Okay, fine, go. We got you covered. But it's going to give the opposite of equity, because equity is all about everything being equal. But the problem is it's never going to be equal. The horse vet, the real horse vet, will want to work all the time and loves what they're doing. Absolutely loves what they're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. Every human on the planet understands that we need a day off. We need downtime. We need to get away. We know that. I've been doing this a long time. And yes, I did it full time for 12 years, 24/7, 365. I never wavered. I never took time off. I never said, oh, I've got to, I can't come because I've got a concert I'm going to with my son. I didn't. I brought my pager with me. We'd go out and do whatever we do. And I'd say, excuse me, I have to go. And off I'd go. Sometimes I'd take two vehicles, the practice vehicle and the regular vehicle, just in case I had an emergency. It's just the way it was. I didn't think I was more important than anybody else. It was my calling. I wanted to be with horses. I don't think anybody wants to do that anymore. I think they don't even understand what it's like to have that connection. From a lot of the people that I've seen, the veterinarians out there, all they're taught to do is drug the horse for a simple bandage change. Let's drug it. Why? Well, there's danger. So we have to mitigate danger. We have to make it perfect for the horse. So the horse is sitting there schnockered while the person works on it, and they leave and they collect their money. And I'm like, I didn't see any passion. I didn't see anybody conversing with a horse owner about, if you took down the barbed wire, you wouldn't have as many cuts on your horse, or something. I'm constantly going out there telling people that most of the illnesses that these horses have are secondary, secondary to chronic protein deficiency, as you all know. I'm supposed to have a cough button. So when I cough, I just press it and I cough and I release it. I don't have one of those things here. Maybe I should get one. Sorry about the cough in your ear. But I spent a lot of time educating. I went to a farm last week where I started with 2 horses for one gal, and then they added 2 more horses for another gal. Then they added another horse and another horse and another horse. All new clients because they were looking for my style of dentistry. And when I was there, every person got the whole deal about how to feed horses because they all had questions. Why is my top line bad? Why are my hooves bad? Why is my behavior bad? And the horse anyway. And I was able to give them help. And I spent an extra hour there, more than I had planned, because they needed it. And I had the time that I could give to them. But there's other times they're like, I don't have it. I can't help you. I'm busy. I've got stuff to do. But every chance I can, I try to help horse owners understand what they've got there. Because the owner's manual didn't come with a horse. The owner's manual is sitting in a magazine called, Equus, or the horse. And I've already written to you or podcasted to you the bias that's in every magazine. And the podcast has also brought to you the bias in every meeting that I attend. So it's a little bit frustrating. And I know I'm coming up on about an hour, 50 minutes anyway. And I don't want to drill this home anymore. And so let me just stop abruptly. You get it. You need passion. And there are a lot of people who say they are passionate and they are veterinarians. And I'm sure there are some out there that are absolutely passionate about what they do. And I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying the reason we have such an attrition rate, or frankly, a lack of any interest in becoming equine veterinarians, is because nobody's passionate about these animals anymore. They're just RVs parked in a garage, brought out by owners, and they want the vet to come here and fix their problem where the owners didn't even attempt to prevent the problem in the first place, which is what the whole purpose of this podcast is all about. Passion is what we need to be talking about. If the AAP had and the FAP had more veterinarians just talk about the passion, the trials and tribulations of going out there and becoming a better person, a better veterinarian, a better helper of horse owners, and what they've done to discover how this is, and all the rewards, not all the bad things where the guy didn't pay, they gave you a bounce check, they didn't appreciate what you did, they took your advice and then did something else differently. I mean, this is human nature. We have to understand that's human nature. But we also have to focus on all the wins that we have in the columns. And once you have 100 wins, they don't seem to be as glowing as that one failure. And it's the one failure that seems to define all of us and makes us feel like we're not good veterinarians. But what makes a good equine veterinarian, or anybody, the guy who fixes your appliances at home or your car, is the passion they have for solving and giving you more than what you want. And I'm just not seeing that in equine veterinarians. All they're worried about is, how am I going to pay my bills? And do I have time off to have this work-life balance? We have to stop talking about this and start talking about the passion and the joy of being an equine veterinarian, the joy in what we're doing. The joy of going down that road across the plains in the early hour mornings when there's no other traffic, the sun is just coming up, you're seeing the early birds out there, and you're seeing the wild animals, and you're just breathing in the fresh new air, and you know you've got to do this for the next 30 minutes, but at that point you're going to see, so-and-so with their, difficult horse with a difficult situation. But embrace the idea that you've got that person asking you for help. Embrace the idea that that horse is going to be a challenge, that owner is going to be a challenge. Embrace the fact that you're not going to earn as much money as you would like, but you're charging what they can afford, and you're helping these people. And you're going to have to do something else to make sure that your bills get paid. It's that simple. I mean, I spend 250 nights a year in a hotel. That's a long time. People are saying, are you nuts? How can you do that? I mean, I was licensed in 10 states, running around the countryside, spending night after night, to the point where I'm a lifetime ambassador elite at Marriott. Lifetime, meaning I don't have to change it, stay there again, and they'll still make me the highest level. Why? Because night after night after night, I stayed in hotels because I knew the next day I could help people through their horses, help their horses. I'd go out there and it was a bad mattress, or there are kids running up and down the hotel till 1 o'clock in the morning. I just learned to live with it. I would go out there the next morning. I would attend to the horse, and the horse would be like, what are you doing here? I'm going to kill you. And I would file their teeth, and the horse would say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that they hurt so bad. Thank you so much. The owner's almost in tears because they didn't realize that the horse is having so much trouble. I know the horse is happy. The people are happy. I leave. I don't think about the hotel that I was in all the night before, or the one that's coming up tonight, 150 miles away. I don't think about that. And I still have a wife who loves me and a son who loves me, dogs who remember who I am, and still make it hard to sleep in the bed at night because they crowd me. But the joys don't have to be continuous. The joys are every event in our life, and you have to have passion about what you do. And that's what's missing right now. So a message to the AAP, FAEP, and to the AVMA, start talking about passion. What a thrill it is to be able to help people with whatever you do. I mean, if you're listening to this and you're an auto mechanic, so show some compassion and passion for the person who has their vehicle that's not working. And do the best you can to make sure that the vehicle is working great, and charge a fair price. That's all there is to it. All right, in the last few remaining minutes, I just want you to pause on this a little bit and ask yourself about what you do in your occupation. That's fine. But I need your help. I need some ideas. I need to get off this kick about how the crisis is, because you guys are all going to get depressed and not listen to me anymore. I get it. Every place I go, people are still asking me. I don't understand the concept that if I feed more sugar to my horse is going to convert their muscle into sugar. And people say, wait, what? Stop. Say that again. The more sugar I feed my horse, the more muscle is going to be consumed and turned into sugar. Yes. Write that down, underline it. That's the principle behind muscle loss and tendons falling apart, and neurotransmitters falling apart, and enzymes falling apart, and immune systems falling apart. It's working in you and your horse the same way. Whether you're vegetarian or carnivore, it makes no difference. I need to go over that some more. I need you guys to ask me questions. I need you to become members of the Horses Advocate, or join the Facebook Horses Advocate group. I often go in there. My wife goes in there every day, and she listens, and she understands we need to get some good questions so I can answer them on the podcast here, so I can reach all of you to help you. this unseasonably warm summer that we're having, how many people are having horses not sweat? How many people out there have had non-sweating horses and are now sweating because they decided to take the horse off grain? Let's get some numbers here, folks. Let's get some curveballs. Ask me about the pulse electromagnetic frequency field machine that I have, the therapy machine, the PEMF, that is I'm using on my back, and how I'm going through acupuncture and chiropractic and deep laser therapy, as well as at PEMF, to take care of an injury I sustained on my back, where I was barely able to walk just last week. And now I'm almost virtually pain-free after suffering for almost 6 weeks. How is this possible? How can I get off painkillers? Ask me questions like this. Let's get into it. Get some practitioners out there who are very good at what they do, using herbs or laser or PEMF or whatever, and see if they are willing to get on a podcast with me so we can dig down deep and understand how these things work. I mean, right now, I had my gut microbiome tested. I had my saliva tested to find out my gut microbiome of my mouth. And I've also had blood tests done, all to determine how my enzymatic activity is working. And from that, I have custom tailored herbs that are being sent to me, plus some vitamins and minerals, and a whole list of foods that are my superfoods, and a whole list of foods that are my avoid at all costs foods, and other foods that I should avoid, and other foods that I should eat plenty of. I now have a path. It would be so great if I could find somebody who's doing that for horses. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't we all like to hear about that? These are some of the things I'd like to follow up on and bring to you via the podcast. So please send me an email. Just send it to Geoff at thehorsesadvocate.com. And of course, if you don't know by now, Geoff is spelled Geoff, the old British way. Geoff at thehorsesadvocate.com. Send me in some ideas. Put in the subject, idea for the podcast, and I'll compile them. I'll put them all together, and I'll try to make this podcast reflective of what you listeners want to hear. I've got listeners all around the world listening to this. I'm so grateful, from Australia to China to South America to all over Europe and certainly North America. And I'm humbled by that. But I want to bring to you a little bit more. I want to bring to you what you guys are looking for. So let's make this happen. And I promise, the more ideas you give me, the more I'll stop talking about this crisis in the veterinary practice. I want to show you the passion I still have for helping you guys and your horses thrive in a human world. That's just not a catchy catchphrase. It's the passion of what I bring to you, helping horses thrive in a human world, because it is a human world. We have fences up, we have barn walls up. We don't allow a horse to be a horse anymore. So how do we help them thrive? How do we prevent them from breaking down? And help them be happy. That's what this podcast is all about. So thank you for becoming a member of the Horses Advocate. Those of you who have any amount helps. I'm just so grateful. It helps supply all these thirsty things like servers and computers and professional level Zoom and all that stuff. So I'm grateful there. And tell others. The more people you tell, and the more people go to Apple or Spotify or whatever you listen to, Google Cast or something, and put in some comments, hopefully all good, that will help us get to more people. The more people, the merrier. The numbers make a difference. It really does. Let's help horses thrive in the human world, folks. That's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Doc T, thank you for spending your time with me. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Hey, everyone. Doc T here. Thank you for listening to my content. Would you do me a huge favor? Would you please subscribe, comment, like, thumbs up, and give a star review? However it's presented to you, I want you to do that. There's two reasons. The first, of course, is to improve this product. This way I know what you like, what you don't like, what I can improve upon, what topics you want me to cover. But more importantly, it's also going to help others find me. And by doing that, you are now engaged in this mission of helping horses thrive in a human world. By you helping, we can reach others.
And that I would be so grateful for. And remember, go to thehorsesadvocate.com for updates on this information. Thehorsesadvocate.com. And again, thank you so much for being here. Doc T out.